Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Lads. We've got an early review for Star Wars, The High Republic, Battle of Jedha. This is the latest audio drama in The High Republic, Phase 2. So we're going to dive into this book spoiler-free, but before we do so, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to our channel for continued Star Wars content. We have so much stuff coming for you the rest of this week and then carrying on through the entirety of the first quarter of 2023. We have Bad Batch Season 2 premiering on Wednesday, so we'll be talking about predictions and speculation as well as giving you guys our review as usual for these new shows, and we will be covering all the latest and greatest releases in the High Republic as they come out throughout first half of 2023. So let's get into the High Republic, the Battle of Jedha. We usually do our book reviews in three different parts. First, we start out with our overall thoughts on the plot and the story. Sanak, what about the narrative of the High Republic, the Battle of Jedha, stuck out to you?
It is a very large scale ensemble story in relatively confined not era, area. This is definitely a story that benefited from the audio drama format. If this was just like an audiobook, we would have probably struggled a lot more with just the sheer number of characters and all the crossovers in there. It's not necessarily as like grab your attention as like the Rising Storm on Valo or parts of the Fallen Star or a lot of the beginning of Light of the Jedi. But I think this is definitely one that raises the bar for what we expect in terms of action for Phase 2. This is a very direct sequel to Convergence as well, so we are following a lot of the threads there, if not necessarily the same characters. But as a result of that, the Jedi to me now seem very clear as people who are involved but never like really dictating or guiding the direction of where the story is going. I was just as enticed by mm, so many other non-force users and their politics, their misunderstandings, their disagreements. And I think that's what made it compelling, just to have Jedi kind of be forced to react, not be all knowing. Still very powerful, but sometimes some things are just too old and too complicated for the flick of a wrist to fix things at all times. So that certainly made the narrative very engaging, very fast paced, but not overwhelming at times too. So yeah, definitely appreciated that.
The Battle of Jedha is probably the simplest High Republic story we've gotten in any type of book format so far through Phase 1, Phase 2. It's pretty straightforward. It's called the Battle of Jedha for a reason, and it's mostly all deals with the Battle of Jedha, which is a good thing because with the audio drama format, this audio drama has incredible sound. Like there's so much wonderful combat sound too, where there's times where the book just pauses and you don't hear any dialogue. All you hear are blasters and lightsabers and explosions and people screaming and yelling and fighting. I really dug the production of this whole thing, and that's a big part of what we are looking at when we are reviewing an audio drama because it's different from an audiobook. It's not just the book read to you with some added effects. This is an actual full production, and the script version is coming out sooner than usual. It's coming out next month, but it's still coming out after this. So this is the intended way for you to consume this medium, and I thought it was extremely effective. I think the Battle of Jedha, in terms of it, the story that you get here, it does a great job of giving us what Force cultures are like at this time. We've seen bits and pieces of them. We've seen the Path of the Open Hand. We've heard a lot about the Jedi at this time. We've seen the Jedi interact as mediators in Convergence, but here we get a bunch of different groups. We've got Guardians of the Wills. We've got new groups. We've got Path of the Open Hand. We have the Jedi. We have the Church of the Force. We have pretty much every Force culture we've ever heard about, read, been referenced all the way back to George Lucas's early drafts of Star Wars to now. Everything is being referenced here. Sorcerers of Tund is referenced. That's the thing that definitely captivated me the most about this story, was listening for like, okay, how are we going to tie all of the Star Wars mythology of the Force into this one little audio drama? And I thought they did a great job. George Mann writes this really well. I thought all the characters' interactions and the way everything plays off each other was really well written. And I enjoyed this book a lot. I think I like it a little bit more than Tempest Runner as well, because this book is a sequel, like you said, to Convergence. It doesn't just tell a little story that seems inconsequential to the High Republic like Tempest Runner was. It was a nice addition to a character, but it was a character piece and didn't really need it. Ultimately, I think this is going to be an important piece, and I definitely recommend you listen to it this way. So let's talk about the characters because that's the next section we usually get into here. We have a couple different characters who carry the brunt of the load in this book. We have Creighton's son and Ada Forte, who are introduced in Convergence. They carry a large chunk of the story from the Jedi perspective in here. We also have Salandra Show, who is from Quest for the Hidden City. She shows up. She's the one with the shield. Keth Sarapath, he is a character that plays a big role in this book as well as dozens of other characters from Santekas to Graphs. There are a lot of characters in this book, and it's a lot to keep track of, but the voice cast is really well done. Sonic, what were some of the characters that stuck out to you?
It could mean that even if they are diverse cultures, all different force paths and upbringings, that it could kind of feel sameish at points, but this book, especially being in the audio drama format, really paid off here because we also got like moments like Ket is also constantly going to this bar called the Enlightenment, and I really like the barkeep Kraydon. It's a bar. It's a little messy. It feels very classic cantina in a way, but different. And I appreciated that. Like literally, it's like you can't find anything go wrong in the Enlightenment. It's a wonderful place. And Kraydon, I don't know, the voice acting by Mark Thompson there, just it was so like it feels I felt very alien, very otherworldly, which I think was really nice. In comparison, like Ada Forte, who's a Nikto Jedi, I was not really expecting her to have such a like typical US girl voice. I was expecting a little bit more reptilian, something a little bit different, even if it is a character who is a Jedi raised around a lot of humans and whatnot. Following through Salandra show story, especially with her connection with Ket, but she's fun. I mean, she has the whole shtick of kind of being like a Captain America Jedi with her shield, and there's some nice sound effects there too. But I also like just in general her dynamic that was fostered with Ket. I thought he was one of the top tier like reader POV, normal person as grounded as can be perspectives, while also like fitting very in line with the whole Star Wars ideal that anyone can become a legend, anyone can do something that changes the galaxy, and I really appreciated. I definitely like Critten's on here. I don't think we really got a chance to understand his personality and stuff in Convergence. Here, it's like he's a more cultural guy from Coruscant. He likes staying in the city, but he also knows how to kind of play like a little bit of a diplomat. He's got a little bit of banter with his fellow Jedi. It's stuff like that that was really cool. I also definitely appreciated the fact that the open hand here, even though we've kind of kept these adult novels and young adult novels and junior novels all kind of more separated out compared to how it was in phase one. They were at the end of the day trying to go to Jeddah to be a part of the convocation, to have a voice at the table and having their influence, having kind of like these different ideals, different players that were kind of really shaping up at the end of Path of Deceit really paid off here. Got to see a lot of the difference between the mother and Martero, even more so than in that book where she's a little bit more of like trying to prove herself to the mother. Now that she's the guide, we get to see a lot more of like how they're just doing totally different actions. Overall, I mean, I really enjoy these characters for an ensemble this big. I think it would also help me is that I've also been reading the High Republic Marvel line, so I had some visuals. I had a kind of a sense of the scale and like the layout of Jeddah too, which really helped me kind of embrace the compactness of the story and kind of easily switch around different locations too.
There were a lot of standout characters for me in this book, but I think the heart and soul of this book is definitely carried by Salandra Show and Keth Sarapath. That relationship there and the way that friendship blossoms and Keth's admiration of the Jedi and just wanting to be a part of the larger galaxy. Like you said, it's a theme that is carried throughout Star Wars. It's a theme we see with Luke Skywalker all the way through pretty much every Star Wars story we've seen. And I think it still resonates here. Their relationship is kind of the whole crux of the emotional stakes of Jedha. It's what gets you attached to the planet and the cultures and all of that. I also really, really loved what they did with the Path of the Open Hand here. I thought it was great. And the way the Path of the Open Hand are a part of this conflict, we won't spoil how, but the way they're a part of the conflict and the way they are continuing to manipulate and pull strings, the mother is becoming a really, really interesting villain. In The Rising Storm and in Light of the Jedi, we get full chapters with Marchion Ro. Now, with the mother, we haven't even gotten that type of POV, and she's already super menacing. And the way she's acted in this book also is really, really wonderful. Marta Rowe doesn't have as much to chew on in this, but she does a great job with what she's given. Creighton's son is a strong Jedi character as well. One of our bigger complaints about Convergence was Gelanata was kind of bland. She didn't have too many facets to her. Creighton's son, as well as Solange Show, give us a solid amount of meat for Jedi characters, and probably the meatiest Jedi stuff we've seen since Path of Deceit. For sure, these are some of the strongest Jedi we've seen in Phase 2. So now we get to scores. We will give this book a score out of 5, give you our last overall thoughts on the Battle of Jedha. And Sanak, what would you give the Battle of Jedha out of 5?
Yeah, I would give this a 4. I really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5. After a little bit of a shaky start with Convergence and the adult line, there's so much payoff here in Battle of Jedha. The audio drama format definitely elevates a lot of the things there. There's still so many complications with the Irem Arano Forever War conflict, and that does really shape a lot of the story and the actions and the interactions with our whole host of characters. Like you said, the Path of the Open Hand here continues to be amazing to follow through, especially with like a lot of their diverging actions and philosophies that were already farming in Path of the Sea, but now, especially with the voice acting, it reaches something totally new. A worthwhile read and investment into Convergence payoff here. And now I think now my hype for Cataclysm is officially like basically back where it was after Convergence was first released. That really paid off with this audio drama.
I agree. There was a lot of strong payoff here across this seemingly kind of third part of a series. I've enjoyed what Phase 2 has done with giving us different pieces of story, but they don't feel separate enough to where you feel like you can skip things. Like each part has felt worthwhile and important to the next. And ultimately, that's what makes the Battle of Jeddah so strong for me, where Tempest Runner felt like an ancillary story. This feels like something you have to read. I think as far as audio dramas go for Star Wars, this is probably my second favorite of the three I've listened to. I've yet to listen to the Dr. Aphra one, but I would say Dooku Jedi Lost, then Battle of Jeddah, and then Tempest Runner. It would probably be the way I would rank them. And I think this is probably my second favorite story out of the three books in the High Republic Phase 2. I think only Path of Deceit for me would be ahead of this. I think it is better than Convergence. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5, and you should absolutely listen to it. So thank you so much for watching our review of the Battle of Jeddah. If you have not, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to our channel for continued Star Wars content. Like we said, there's so much Star Wars coming out in the next 4 months. You're definitely going to want to stick with our channel for all of it. We will be covering everything that is coming out. So you're going to want to make sure you're sticking with Star Wars Lads for all of that. If you haven't yet, comment below. Let us know if you've read the Battle of Jeddah, what you think, or if you haven't read it, do our thoughts make you excited to check it out here in the future? Hopefully you guys do. It is definitely worth your time. Also, stick around with our community tab. We're going to be posting more polls, but we also are going to post when we are going to do Jedi Fallen Order live streams. We've done a couple of those already on the channel. You're going to want to check those out. We answer your questions, do a live Q&A, as well as play the game. So make sure you're sticking around with Star Wars Lads to check out those streams. We'll try to keep you notified a little bit more ahead of time than we have been, but we now have things up and running in the streaming department, and we're looking forward to playing that game more and answering more of your questions live. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.